So to level set the stage, right, when it comes to procurement analytics, any conversation on procurement will be incomplete if we don't start with the source to pay cycle. Like the source to pay cycle is the fundamental backbone of every procurement process. You can be participant at any stage here, but traditionally or typically customers start from spend analysis. They took a look at the last year's spend, go all the way till building of strategy, executing those strategies, onboarding of new suppliers, signing of contracts, and then handing over those amazing contracts or useful contracts to business users so they can start doing their purchase requisition or other buying channels that they are using, followed by PO, receipt, invoicing, and payment. Now, throughout every touch point in this source to pay cycle, there is an interaction happening. There is data that is getting generated, be it through meetings, be it through Excel files, be it through submissions, be it through online systems and whatnot. Collectively, all of that data is extremely critical for us to harness intelligence out of it. And that intelligence that we harness from this data is called as procurement analytics. Now, that space remains very, very vast. There is so many things, amazing things you can do with this data. But based on my 16, 17 years in procurement space, I have seen organizations barely able to scratch the surface of procurement analytics. And especially for most people, it stops at diagnostic analytics, where we will see in a minute about what happened. That's the major component that customers usually look for. Now, throughout this data, what do people intend to get out of this? So although I have created a lot of data, however, for most procurement leaders, and when I say procurement leaders, I mean strategic leaders, operational leaders, financial leaders, executives, operations team members, and everybody, what do procurement stakeholders expect? They want three key things to come out of their analytics. The first one is strategic excellence, second is financial excellence, and third is operational excellence. And you will have a copy of this presentation as well. Take a look at the definitions, right? The definitions have been very adeptly crafted to communicate what is intended by strategic excellence. Like establish procurement as a strategic function to assist businesses in procuring predictable supply. That's a very important keyword, predictability of that supply of great quality products and services from reliable suppliers. Now, reliable is also a very key word, identifying and focusing, especially in the last 3-4 years due to so many supply chain disruptions. The reliability of suppliers have come into question. We want to make sure that we are partnering with suppliers who have the agility to be able to respond or to be able to supply goods and services to us, even in times of dire needs or even in times of catastrophe. And maintaining continuity of supply. That means strategically, have I specified my my supply base across different geographies so that environmental, geopolitical, environmental factors can be addressed in case a particular source of supply gets disrupted. Similarly, we expect procurement analytics to help with financial excellence. That means cost savings, budgeting, and so on, and operational excellence, making the whole process of procurement of goods and services for business users a breeze. You don't want a lengthy form to be filled out by business users. You don't want 3-day, 5-day lag when a business user is following up on an order. You don't want a supplier to talk to you 30 times, 40 times to inquire about a payment. All of that leads to operational excellence. Okay, so these are the three key things, and we will see today how does our procurement analytics offering is able to address strategic, financial, and operational expectations. Now, before any conversation about data analytics starts, one of the first term in data analytics is data. Where is my data coming from? So most fundamental thing is accumulation of that data from the right sources and building a right data estate. And hence, I do want to call out on the left-hand side, you would notice there are so many internal systems that organizations use. These are typically on-premise systems, or it could be SaaS. However, these are ERP systems. These could be people management systems. These could be sub-MDM platforms and so on. All of those internal systems are repository of data. Unfortunately, not every data is stored in a consistent fashion across all of these systems. The second is procurement platforms. You could have an entire source to pay platform like GP Smart, Ariba, or Coupa, or you could have a piecemeal software, for example, just contract for iCertis. It could be just P2P invoicing in Bassware and so on. Or it could be just local network files. It could be Excel files. It could be flat files, SharePoint folder of all the bids that you have done previously. All of that data is very critical for us to be able to harness the value out of it. On top of that, there is a significant repository now. Last I checked, it was about 25,000 different sources of third-party data that are available in the market. Some of the very, very well-known ones are listed on the right-hand side. However, Not to say there are many more, thousands more, which are invaluable source. Basically, how do you find if the supplier is diverse? How do you find if the supplier address is correct? How do you validate whether the supplier is sustainable? How do you validate whether the address that the supplier has given is actually still valid? How do you confirm the email is valid? All of these information becomes very important for you when you start doing your procurement analytics. Like rapid ratings gives a phenomenal information about supplier risks and so on. Bringing all of that data together is one part of it. And then creating a data estate from it. Now, this slide could be overwhelming. I'll try to break it down into 3 different verticals. The first one is, once you get all the data, you need to make sure that data gets standardized. So you need to make sure that category names are standard across all of the systems that you have pulled data from. Business unit names are standardized, geography, user, item masters are, naming convention is correct. Vendor names are standardized. It is very, very common to see the same vendor like Polestar solutions being referred to in your contracting system, but in your ordering system, it just refers to as Polestar. Because, and the vendor master may have Polestar Insights or some other name created. So that names or ID should be standardized across all the systems. The currency, the payment terms, the date timestamps, all of that standardization needs to be done before we can start talking about data. Because if that standardization activity has not been completed correctly, your entire analytics will be like a dead on arrival. Therefore, this is one of the most fundamental things we to do. The second thing to build an analytics estate is going to be linking of data. Now we have to ensure that my strategy data, which most likely may be coming from my Excel files, is connected to the sourcing data, which could be from a sourcing platform using category, business unit, region. What was the strategy and what is the sourcing activity I conducted using that strategy? Then connecting sourcing data to supplier data using supplier IDs. Now, there are services available in today's phenomenal cloud capabilities. So Azure, AWS, or GCP, all have services available to simplify these connections much more seamlessly. We do not necessarily need to do a manual task of connecting. Of course, the first initial training data has to be connected, but then services are available to automate that entire process of establishing that connection. Then you make sure your contract data is talking to the supplier data, PO data is talking to the contract data to ensure we track whether the orders were placed in compliance with the contract or not. Then we ensure that the invoice is connected to purchase orders. Usually it is, but in case somebody missed out on quoting a PO data and invoice just comes without a PO reference, systems are available to augment or supplement that data. And then receipt data is connected to invoices as well. So once all of these linkages are completed, then we do into data quality checks. We want to make sure there are no duplicate records. We complete any partial matched records. We remove any data columns that are not needed because we want to create data estate that is fit for purpose. If I am evaluating a supplier performance and there is some aspect of the contract, for example, contract name, etc., if that is not relevant, I don't want to be included because everything brings down the size if it impacts my performance of the data estate. So we remove any unnecessary data columns. We supplement missing data. That is one of the very important part. If, for example, city names, etc., are there, but their city name is not populated, but you know that the vendor is located in that particular city, then I can supplement that data automatically. Then I compute all the calculations. And at this stage, I also supplement with machine learning algorithms. So now machine learning algorithms could be used for a variety of things that we'll see in a minute. I'll pause here, see if there is any questions or comments so far. You can add your comments in the chat. So moving on, once you have created this phenomenal data estate, what do you do with it? So we have in one of the previous webinars covered an entire gamut of procurement analytics use cases. We called it procurement analytics periodic table. So if you refer to the feed of Polestar, it's also available on our website. Please make sure you go refer to it. If you want, we can send you a copy of this PowerPoint editable version. But basically, we have created a significant amount of analytics use cases that can come if your data estate is correct. There are some fundamentals ones, very, very, very basics. And then there are very high value. For example, geographic exposure. And these are all color coded to procurement governance, category management, contract management, supplier management use cases, and so on. Like geographic exposure in procurement governance. How exposed am I to different geographies? Am I concentrated in one geography or my supply base is coming from multiple places? Because this type of analytics will extremely critical for you to understand how is your supply impacted in case there is some disruption in a particular geography. If I take another example, it could be one-time vendor. So if you analyze your one-time vendor, how many vendors have I procured from which were just a one purchase order and done? Because every time you issue a PO or introduce a new vendor in the supply chain, you are introducing risk. So you do want to introduce new suppliers, but want to ensure you are including them in the supply chain only for the purpose of long-term relationship. There will always, of course, be exceptions. However, we still want to ensure that one-time vendors are properly monitored. Is there a particular pattern, one particular business unit, one particular site, one particular stakeholder is introducing new and new suppliers consistently? So you may want to put a check on that and so on. Okay, I won't get into too much details of this analytics because it is also already covered in webinar, but a quick call out, all of these analytics use cases are flagged as financial excellence, strategic excellence, and operational excellence as well. So that will be very easier for you to see which metrics. For example, if I look at star of financial excellence, then cost of transaction processing is a financial excellence metrics. Procurement ROI is a financial excellence metrics. Spend analytics, cost avoidance are all financial excellence metrics. So today we will focus more on the advanced analytics part of it. So once I have started to think about these procurement analytics use cases, now for any user, I can 100% agree with you. This whole analytics use cases can be very overwhelming. That my God, Sid, you just dumped 80 different analytics use cases on me. How do I start prioritizing? So to that, we have a methodology that we frequently recommend. The first and foremost, I do not expect you to work on 80 different use cases. Please prioritize. Create a priority 1, priority 2, priority 3 based on where you are in your analytics journey. And for any of the items you have identified as priority 1, for example, in this case, rec to order cycle time. If my businesses keep on complaining every day that I created a rec on day 1 and the purchase order took 15 days to get created, then you do have this problem of rec to order cycle time. So if you want to address this, the correct sequence for us in which we recommend is first and foremost, find the right data sources from which you can pull the data before you start doing analytics. The second is, like we saw in the previous slide, build a good data estate through standardizing, through linking, and through data cleansing. The third is build a good reporting framework on top of it. That means finding the right KPIs that are going to give you intelligence, finding the right charts that are going to give you intelligence, and then building the right decision framework on top of it. That means what intelligence we want to derive. Once your organization culture is accustomed to having the right data sources, trusting the data, understanding the KPI, and making decisions, then we move on to the next stage, which is called advanced analytics. Now I start making usage of predictive and prescriptive analytics to make better decisions. Now we will jump into, so I'm assuming for the rest of the presentation today that you all have reached up to the decision framework level where you do have diagnostic analytics and you are very interested in exploring what to do next. Therefore, the next few slides will cover about predictive and prescriptive analytics. I'll pause here. If there is any questions or comments before I move on, please type it into chat. We will address that towards the end of the call. Okay, now you may have heard about these stages of analytics, like descriptive, predictive, prescriptive. So first, let's set the level set, the definitions. What does it mean? What is the descriptive, predictive, and prescriptive analytics? Now, you may have heard different definitions in many cases. The one that we are using or leveraging, we want to highlight that here. The first step is, what is this? So a descriptive analytics is always a lagging indicator that helps you know what happened. That 81% of my purchase orders were delivered late. I hope not, but yes, that's what. 71% of my suppliers acknowledge my purchase orders. 21% of my RFPs are awarded on time. So these are all descriptive analytics because they always tell you what happened in the past. The predictive analytics parts are leading indicators that help us know that what is going to happen. For example, this particular supplier is most likely going to miss delivery. You are not going to be able to achieve savings target for this category. This supplier is going to send you an invoice that is going to have a blocked invoice. These are all predictions. These are not guaranteed, but there is a very high chances, depending on the maturity of your algorithm, that this will come to fruition. And then last comes the prescriptive analytics, where you try to react to the leading indicators. You find out what is happening, and then system is actually recommending you a set of actions or a course of action to prescribe a specific action. For me, for example, to know that, yes, my supplier is going to miss the delivery is as good as, okay, what do I do? The action is on me to go and figure out. But in prescriptive analytics, system will tell me specifically what to do. Could it be calling that supplier, or it could be finding a new supplier, or it could be pushing an expedition request using air freight and so on. So all of these recommendations will be generated by the system based on certain criteria, and we'll cover those criteria in a minute. But at a high level, this is what is the expectation. Descriptive is purely lagging. Predictive tells you what may happen, and prescriptive also tells you what to do to make the scenario or recommendations go in your favor or get to a desired recommendation. The next comes data sources. What data is needed? Before you embark on a journey, you need to understand, do I have the right data? So in descriptive analytics, if you have a macro data from past transactions, say past 300 RFPs, past 70,000 purchase orders, 6 months of invoice data, whatever data you have, it does not necessarily have to be a full 3 year. It could be 6 month data. It could be 2 weeks data, and you can start gathering your descriptive analytics from it. Okay, therefore, the granularity of data is not necessarily a criteria for descriptive. The more granular it is, the better it could be, but that is not the constraint. When it comes to predictive analytics, there is a constraint. You don't want to do predictive analytics on 2 months of data. You do need a significantly reliable or representative data for us to be able to start making predictions. Therefore, getting transactional data from your own systems, which at least dates 12 to 24 months long. The bigger the better. If you have 3 years data, nothing better than that, because it gives us a lot of intelligence about cyclicity of the data, cyclicity of transactions, what environment we can supplement it with third-party data and see how weather has influenced this ordering pattern, how inflation has influenced this ordering pattern, how exchange rate have influenced these orders, and so on, or supplier participations. Therefore, robust set and scale is important of transactional data. The more granular the data, the better predictions we can arrive. Now, when it comes to prescriptive analytics, the data source remains pretty much the same as predictive, with one very important distinction. For setting up a system for prescriptive analytics, we want to ensure that we have predictions in place. So optimization scenarios in place. So we want to make sure, what do you want to optimize? Do you want to optimize savings? Do you want to optimize time to delivery? Do you want to optimize supplier participation? Do you want to optimize delivery, diversity suppliers, sustainable suppliers? What is it that you want to optimize? Because the system will always go for that request. Whatever you have specified as target, system will create recommendation based on that target. Because if you take an example, like if I'm looking at contract non-compliance, right, that there are so many different contracts that are created, but still people are not using my contracted suppliers. Now, there may be 2-3 optimization scenarios I can give. First and foremost, I can give as contract compliance, or I can give to as price compliance. Please ensure that people are buying at the rate at which I'm negotiating, not necessarily from the same supplier. And then system can make a recommendation that, yes, ABC supplier is not contracted, but they are still supplying at the same price. Therefore, the recommendation can be much more easier for team members to implement. The third thing becomes decision maker. That is a very important aspect as well. Who is making the decision? So in descriptive and predictive analytics, the decision onus is still on humans. You have to make the decision. The person, operations manager, contract manager, category managers, they have to make decisions. The amount of data available for that decision could be different. In descriptive, it is much more simpler. In predictive, the data points are much more nuanced. Therefore, for some people, it becomes much more complex to make decisions based on predictive analytics. However, in prescriptive analytics, the onus of that decision making is passed on to the machine. So now systems or computers are recommending what actions to take. Now, keep in mind, the actions are still to be taken by humans. You can ignore all the prescriptions, but at least you know exactly what the system is recommending. And if you start to trust the system, your life might become a lot easier when it comes to execution of these day-to-day. Think of it like Google Maps. I don't have to think about going from place A, from driving from Houston to New York, which route to take. I'll follow Google Maps because I have started to trust it over the last 12 years or so. So that's like prescription. Google Maps tells me what direction to go and I go. I still have the flexibility. If I want to take a detour, I can go take a stop in Atlanta, go to someplace else, take as many breaks as I want. But at least I have a defined path guided to me by the computers. Now, the next logical question becomes, so when to use what, and what are the pros and cons of using each? So descriptive, the easiest is data acquisition is very easy and it's very easy to implement. Okay, we have many customers who have very robust diagnostic analytics in place. However, the value add is fairly limited. There's only so much that descriptive analytics will be able to tell you. On the other hand, for predictive and prescriptive, the data acquisition is very intense. You need a lot of data, 2-year, 3-year data, standardizing it, cleansing it, all the steps that I was showcasing or talking about in the past couple of slides. But on the pro side, the value add could be immense. Your efficiency will improve, your strategy will improve, your continuity of supply will improve, your financial excellence will improve, and so on. All the goals or targets that you are expecting, which you feed into prescriptive analytics, can be optimized using these algorithms. So now I move on to some use cases for things. So I have two use cases to define to show you the journey. So the first one is on working capital management. On working capital management, if you think about descriptive analytics, you can get very basic metrics about which supplier are invoicing as per agreed payment terms. Are they, if I, in the contract, it was net 45 days, am I paying them on net 45 days? Yes. Then you can also start thinking about some advanced calculation that what is the difference or what is the savings that I'm losing or what is the cash flow that I'm impacted because of delta between the negotiated and actual payment term. I negotiated net 45, but they are requesting net 30. Okay, so the 15 days payment days lost to me. So what is the cost of capital? Based on that, I can calculate that for 15 days, how much savings did get lost. Similarly, many of the suppliers offer negotiated discounted payment terms, 2% net 10, 1% net 15, and so on. The system can also calculate, if configured correctly, what was the opportunity lost. In how many cases I could have given 2% discount, taken 2% discount and paid much more earlier. And what was the capital loss because of that. So all of that is part of descriptive. But when it comes to predictive and prescriptive, there is some very, very niche use cases that I can start predicting. So for predictive, you can predict which purchase order is going to have a different payment term on the invoices. If the system has a couple of years of data, I can start seeing a pattern for a particular category, for a particular supplier, for a particular time of the month, that this supplier is going to ask for an early payment on this particular invoice. And that is not a rocket science. Algorithms exist today. We implement it day in and day out, where we are able to predict that this particular invoice submitted on this PO will have a different payment term. Based on that, you can also start predicting what is the potential savings. That if the supplier or lost or earned, that if a supplier, even if it says net 45, but the supplier I can negotiate a net 60. If I do negotiate net 60, what is the advantageous position that I can be in? So all of those predictions can be done. Similarly, I can start predicting which of the invoices for a specific POs are going to be blocked due to payment term exception, due to price exception, due to quantity exception, because in many cases, clearing those invoice exceptions causes delay in payments. And significant amount of resources are to be spent. So if there is a surge in the invoices that are going to be blocked, you can staff the team accordingly to address those. Okay, that are some examples of predictive analytics for working capital. Now, on the same lines, you extrapolate and you will be able to see a lot of amazing use cases on prescription. Like list of purchase orders where I can actually propose a discounted payment terms. So there are certain suppliers based on their third-party data, based on their financial rating, based on their financial reports. I know which position are they in and whether I will be able to offer them a good discounted payment term for quick payments. If they are having cash flow problems or challenges, there are news articles that frequently gets published about those things, which I can read through for public companies and make these judgment calls. And the system should be able to prescribe that ABC supplier, if you offer 2% net 10, they will accept it, so that it helps you be in an advantageous position. Similarly, you can, since I had a list of purchase order that may have a different payment terms, and I don't want that to happen, the system can prescribe me a sequence of purchase order to follow up and remind the suppliers, all automated, that, hey, Sid, this is to remind you that the invoice from Polestar is expected by this date. Please ensure that the payment term that you use is net 60 days. A proactive reminder that can go to the supplier to remind them to submit the correct payment terms on the invoice, so that we don't get into the problem of negotiating and discussing and clearance of those invoices. And the third very good prescriptive analytics that can come is recommendation to finance team to plan for the budget overages. For unavoidable scenarios where suppliers are they have a pattern that at the end of the quarter or the end of the year, they will come back with early payment requests, then I can specify that to my finance team to start planning that please plan $370,000 for quick payments in the month of December, because there are many suppliers who will come and will not be able to honor net 60 days. They will want the payment in net 30 days or net 15 days. Hence, please plan accordingly. And if I am able to provide that visibility to finance, they will ensure that funds are available to disburse for those cases. So this is one example of how descriptive different descriptive, predictive, and prescriptive analytics can look for a working capital management scenario. Moving on, if I look at spend analytics, for order delivery tracking, which is an operational scenario, that for descriptive analytics, I have available that how many suppliers are able to adhere to my delivery dates. I requested 17th of January, items got delivered by 16th or 17th January, perfect. Or what percentage of suppliers missed their deliveries. All of those things I can find out. I can also start correlating by some advanced calculations, a correlation between how much lead time did I give and what was the chances of late delivery. Because many times I may not blame just the supplier. It could be that I gave a very little heads up to the supplier. So finding that correlation that yes, whenever the lead time, because supplier specified lead time and the actual lead time could be two different things. So if I place an order 15 days before, supplier is 99% able to satisfy on time. But if I'm able to place an order 12 days before, supplier is most likely going to miss. So I identify what is the sweet spot where a lead time can be created for each item. All of that can be done by descriptive analytics. So now we come to what value add can predictive analytics add this. The first one is based on all the previous record, very, very highly successful offering that we already have is we are able to predict a delivery date for each PO line. So, but this is post facto. After a purchase order has been issued with a requested delivery date, we have a portal where users can log in and can see that requested delivery date was 17th of January. The expected delivery date is 31st of January. So it's going to be delayed by 14 days and so on. That will help you understand whether I'm able to accept it, not accept it, what course of action to choose, but that prediction is available for users to know. Especially relevant for business users or stakeholders. If you expose this type of data to them, they will be very easily, they don't have to call procurement operations team very often. They will be able to do a self-serve analytics here that, okay, my order will come on this date. How do I plan my work till that time? Similarly, we can also predict what are the chances of late deliveries. That if I don't want to take a look at each individual delivery lines, I can look at a macro level that 89% of my items are going to be delayed. And delayed by 7 days, delayed by 5 days, delayed by more than 1 month, and so on. So I can focus my energy on analytics of things that are going to be delayed by more than 1 month, for example. And you can filter it by category, business unit, or regions. Now, when it comes to prescriptive, there is a very small difference between predictive and prescriptive here. While predictive was telling me all the purchase order lines and their expected delivery date, prescriptive actually tells me which purchase order to be followed. On which orders should I call the supplier? On which orders or line items should I start looking at new suppliers? Because even if I follow up based on my past experiences, this supplier will not be able to submit on time. Similarly, prescriptive analytics can start giving me alternate supplier recommendations that so and so supplier can be reached out to secure the sources of supply. Alternatively, it can also start prescribing you a expected delivery date for each PO line. So it can give a recommendation. So this is before a purchase order is to be issued. A user can go into the system, enter the description of the item, enter the expected supplier, and check. The system will tell you before you issue a PO that so and so item from this supplier will be delivered in 21 days. Now, if you want it, you can issue the PO. If you don't want it, you can find alternate suppliers. So that is the value add that prescriptive analytics can be done. Now, one important thing is that all of these analytics cannot be delivered on a Power BI or a Click report. There are various tools that are to be augmented along with those. They're phenomenal applications for visualization, for intelligence, but there is a workflow component involved. So we frequently create widgets on Power Apps. We create portal pages that are exposed to the end users to be able to do all of these activities together. So it's the coming together of data entry and data visualization that will help us achieve the best scenario of leveraging value out of predictive and prescriptive. Okay, I'll give you a minute to see if you have any questions, which you can put on the chat. And then I'll move on to the asset showcase. Fazan, how are we doing on time?
We are on time.
Okay. Okay, so when it comes to asset showcase, let me quickly walk you through some of the assets that we are working on. The first one is order management, exactly like we just discussed. So this is a sample order delivery analytics page. So this is a Power BI page. On top, you are seeing some infographics, very simple to implement. What are the total number of orders issued year to date? How many are delivered? How many are outstanding? what percentages of order went through change order, what is the average time to acknowledge by suppliers, what percentage of orders were acknowledged, what is the total spend covered. Now, wherever we have artificial intelligence component, I have flagged that by using AI. So we do have delivery status, how many items are delivered, how many are not delivered, which is the simple percentages here. Then we move on to delivery due date. So which ones are not due and which ones are past due. So in this case, you will say for items that are not delivered, 53% of them are not due yet. That means I can do something about it. For items that are past due, 47%, they are already past due. Okay. Now for the items that are not due yet, my system is already predicting that 273 orders are going to miss the deliveries. Now it could be one line item, it could be all line items, but whatever number of unique purchase orders where I'm going to miss deliveries, that it is indicated using AI. So users know that it's use it using a grain of salt. Right? It is not 100% correct. It will not be 100% correct, but it's a very good indication for me to start thinking about how to plan ahead. So I'm seeing 273 orders. I'm also seeing how many orders am I expecting deliveries in November and December. So if I'm sitting in October and I have 31st October, I have received 74 POs. These are all order deliveries by month. And I'm seeing 75 POs are expected delivery in month of November and 89 in the month of December. Now, this is a prediction. When I click on any of these numbers, 75 or 89, it gives me a full list of all the POs, which plant, which vendor, who is the requisition, and what is the amount that are going to be delivered. I can put filter on delivered late, and it will sub-filter this order details using that. Now, on the right-hand side, you will notice there is a widget. This is a Power Apps widget that can help me plan or do the predictive and prescriptive part of it. It has a field for order number. It has a field for item. So once I have missed delivery predictor selected, all the orders in which items are going to be missed out will be a drop down here. So if I select that purchase order, particular purchase order, and within that purchase order, I select which item is the system predicting is going to be delayed. And then I'm looking at 5 units are requested. Total spend is $7,500. Ordered on November 28th from Max Chemicals. My requested delivery date is December 2nd, but the expected delivery date that the system is telling me is December 17th. So it is going to be 15 days late. Now, this whole part is prediction. Now, what the system is doing, it's giving me a few options to do. The first one is mark as no concern. That means even if it's 15 days delayed, I was planning very well, I'm perfectly okay. I can mark it as no concern, and this item will not be flagged again. Alternatively, I can escalate it to procurement. So I click this button. It comes immediately that I can drop a note to procurement. Hi, I'm writing to notify for potential delay. Please follow up with the vendor or start exploring alternate options. So user does not want to do anything, but they want to follow up with the procurement only. So an automated email. So you may want to change something, you can. Otherwise, you can just press send. The third option is inquire with supplier. So it could be procurement user or it could be business user who wants to check with the supplier. So right on this system, you can inquire with supplier where you say wanted to confirm that the below items are still on track. So do notice that the email text of both the informations were correct, different. Here, I'm not saying December 17th anywhere because I don't want to tell the supplier that I'm expecting it by December 17th now. My original date was December 2nd. I want to keep it like that. I'm requesting a delivery date. Delivery update. Alternatively, the prescription part of it is coming where system is prescribing that the alternate supplier could be DSR distributor. And I can click on this check availability. And the system is telling me that if I order from DSR distributor, I'm likely to receive this item by December 7th. So that will help me plan the next time onwards what I want to do. I can either leave it, work with procurement or supplier to get it on time, or I can use prescriptive analytics and check with DSR distributor. Now, this is a sample workflow. I can configure it in n number of ways. I can configure this check availability to drop a note directly to DSR distributor. I can configure change supplier icon here that will automatically create a trigger to my purchase order system to issue a new PO to the supplier. All of those things are possible. It will require a lot of connections and integrations though, but in today's world of APIs, I think integration is usually not the big concern. It works majority of the time and works beautifully. So it's only about risk appetite that, yes, I want to go in that direction. Will it be perfect on day one? Probably not. But in a few months, in a couple of months, usually the maturity of these integrations interfaces starts to show up beautifully. But what we need is a step in the right direction to start working on such use cases. Okay, I do have one more use case. I'll pause here, see if there is any questions or comments so far, and then we'll address it towards the end. Okay, the second use case I have is not a PowerPoint that video, sorry, it's not a Power BI or Click. It's not a dashboard at all. It's how to use analytics in a more functional and engaging way. So SOW is one of the most important aspects of a procurement job. You frequently sign statement of works, which refer to a master services agreement, which makes sure that I'm able to leverage a pre-signed MSA and create smaller statement of works for multiple projects with a particular consultant, with a particular supplier, with a particular application maintenance support company, and so on. So one frequent problems that procurement individuals run into is that you need to go and validate that entire statement of work against a lengthy 45-page MSA to make sure that SOW and MSA are matching. So we tried to solve that issue or problem using a combination of artificial intelligence, diagnostic, predictive, and prescriptive analytics, where we have created a portal where you can very easily upload the statement of work, auto select a MSA if I have access to your contract data, and system will actually recommend whether the SOW is good to sign or not. So I'll show you an example. So this is a portal, ready-made portal with us, which is called Statement of Work Review. You upload a draft SOW here. You select a reference document. Now, reference documents can be uploaded manually. If you have a Word document ready or a PDF ready, you can upload it. Or I can have access to your contract API. And based on this SOW selected, I know the supplier, and I can go query that API using the supplier name and pull all the contracts that are available or all the MSAs available with that particular supplier. So in this case, I'm picking from list. So I uploaded an SOW, system went, checked the supplier name, pulled out all the MSAs they existed with that supplier, and is showing me here. And now I can click compare. Once I click compare, the system is automatically comparing two documents. It's comparing statement of work to MSA. It is comparing the durations of the two, whether the SOW is in the same time period as that of MSA. It's comparing rate card, will compare indemnity, intellectual property, insurance, payment terms, and will complete and present a report in this fashion. So this is a sample report that will come out of this. Now, this is again a combination of diagnostics and artificial intelligence that gives me a very nice summary. Across all of these parameters, it tells me that the duration is as expected. Rate card is available in both, but it's not exactly matching. The indemnity clauses are available in both and are in alignment. Intellectual property rights are not available in SOW, but are available in reference contract. Therefore, no issues there. Insurance coverage is not available in SOW, but is available in reference contract. And payment terms is available in both, and they are not matching. Now, related to each, I have significant amount of details available. So, for example, duration, when I click view details, the system automatically, and these are all live screenshot from a working platform. The system automatically takes the duration on what is the language in statement of work and what is the language in MSA. Now, you would notice that the language here is not very simply dates. It is a Word document with a lot of documented language there. The system, the generative AI system is actually going through this entire system. Sorry, natural language processing system is going through this SOW language and MSA language and picking the right dates. So it knows that 28th February 2021 to 25th September 2021 is SOW. And 1st Jan 2021 to 31st December is MSA. So this date is part of MSA. Therefore, is allowed. I move on. I check the rate card. When I see view details, it is comparing all the designations against SOW and MSA. And it immediately helps me notice that the BI developer rate is 145 in the SOW, but in MSA it was 140. So now I know that I need to go into SOW and request an edit to the supplier instantly because it's not in alignment with the MSA. Imagine the number of hours it is saving. This whole technology will save across the year, across all categories for people who are continuously working or signing new SOWs. The third, I can look at indemnity. Same thing, indemnity languages from both the systems have been captured and highlighted here. The system is going through this, and if they feel that the indemnity language is incorrect in both, it will highlight this as not expected. So although it is available and it is consistent, it is called as expected. Now, no human has to read through this entire thing in order to find out. This whole language system has gone through it and is confirming that these are correct. Yes, for the first few months, you may want to validate everything is in sync, but later on that confidence will start improving. I go into intellectual property rights, not available in SOW, but available in MSA. Makes perfect sense. I don't want my IPR language inside SOW in order to avoid confusion. Close it. Insurance coverage is available, no issues there. Payment terms, it says 50 days and 60 days, not as expected. I click view details. I'm able to see an SOW reference language of credit period of 50 days, and I'm seeing MSC 60 days. So it helps me jump very quickly to the SOW and point out that mistake to the supplier. That makes it so much more easier for me to operate and sign a good SOW. Now you would notice, why is this featuring in predictive and prescriptive analytics? The reason being that all of analytics is not just a reference of creating a pretty chart. It's about making a person make better judgment and better decisions. I could have shown this entire information in form of a nice line chart, pie chart as well, showcasing that 81% of SOWs have problem, 19% don't have problem. But that does not help you. What helps you is an application that guides you to the exact section on which what to do. And hence we created, if I want to pick a different document now, I can go into the system and do it comparison quickly on my own. So that interaction or user engagement is necessary for me to be able to use it. Now I can create all of this into a Power Apps application and embed it along with a Power BI dashboard as well. Okay, or you can keep it as a standalone application, making it very useful for people who are signing statement of works every day.
Sid, this was phenomenal and extremely insightful. And thank you all for joining in. Thank you, Sid.
Great.
Have
Thank
a
you,
great
everyone.
day.
Bye.
Have a great day.